Okay. LinkedIn says you're not approved. LinkedIn Live. Okay. Well,
It says you're live in the corner.
I know.
Shall I have a look on
Okay, we're live now. Okay. We are live. Well, hey. So, welcome to today's my guest interview with the lovely Emma Greenslade, which is all about rebooting your life. I'm Emma Last, and my company is Progressive Minds, and I will hand over to the very lovely Emma to talk about her survival story and how she's rebooted her life. So, Emma, please could you tell me your story?
I would love to, Emma. Thank you. So my story really was back to 11 years ago. I was living in India with my husband, or now ex-husband, and I had two daughters. One was still a baby, and I was in a really unhappy marriage. And we had gone there really to rekindle our marriage, but it didn't work, and we had another child. And I had a large property portfolio, and I was running it from India, and so the time difference was pretty, so not only was I working till like midnight because of the time difference, but then I might be breastfeeding. Well, and after a year of that, I was absolutely exhausted. And I'd come to England for a holiday, but I'd gone back to the UK, but during the 5 weeks that me and the two children, because he didn't come, were in the UK, she was teething. And so because we were staying in other people's houses, I was really conscious of her being noisy. Yeah. And so when we arrived back in it, I was even more exhausted.
Yeah.
And I had a big argument with my ex-husband. We were out for dinner. I remember we were sitting in a Chinese restaurant, and he was stuffing his face, but he was being really to me. And I was just sitting there crying. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Anyway, as we were driving back home, you have to go over the bridge. And we had this big high up vehicle. And I was thinking to myself, it would be so easy for me to wind down the window and just launch myself. I thought I was fucking Superwoman. I could launch myself. I do cuss. Launch myself out of the window and into the river below. And I make light of it, but I did. I was taking my life.
Yeah.
I was so unhappy, and I obviously didn't.
And that was, so the purpose of getting out the window wasn't just to get away from him, was to end the pain.
Was to end the pain, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was in such a bad place. And I didn't really, because we just keep going and keep busy.
Yeah.
And, numb it out with whatever.
Yeah.
And so I took myself to a psychiatrist.
Right.
And he diagnosed me with bipolar.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, which was quite interesting. I'd never even considered it before.
Yeah.
And he put me on lithium.
Right.
I don't know if any of your viewers have been on lithium, but it is horrible. It is the nastiest drug. My face puffed up, my body puffed up. I was a bit long.
Yeah.
And my sister works in mental health.
Yeah.
She was like, no, you're not bipolar. You're just exhausted.
Yeah.
And, I had quite a few, it was completely the wrong diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I took myself off, I took myself off the lithium. I remember it took me longer to get off it than I was on it, because you have to come off it so slowly.
Yeah.
And that was probably about maybe 3 months before my 40th birthday. But during that time of me being quite ill and not really there, he had he'd spent all the money. Now, I had a multi-million-pound business, and we'd gone to escape capital gains because I'd sold off half the properties.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know what he did, but he spunked the lot. Got me into, we had the credit crunch, and I had funding with an Icelandic bank, and it was just like, how much can they keep dumping on me? And on my 40th birthday, he made me cry twice, and I was just like, I need to get out of this relationship.
Right.
And
so is that your pinpoint, really?
That was the pinpoint for me.
Yeah.
And I then spent the months working out how to get out of, how to leave him and what was going to happen, and took back control of my business and really got myself back into a state where I could manage.
Yeah.
So,
and was this all the time whilst coming off the lithium as well?
No, so I came off. By my 40th birthday, I was off it.
Right. Yeah. So kind of getting more back to you.
Definitely more back to me. I was still drinking quite heavily, and I still, I realized that I had to be there for my children. He was very present. He was never really present in the relationship, and it was always we basically lived separate lives. So to leave him wasn't going to be difference. But then I did leave him. So that would have been in the December. In the July, I left. We left the house because that's the contract ended. He went into one house, and I went with a 5-bedroomed house into this little 2-bedroomed house. And it looked like a furniture shop. But I began just getting rid of everything. I used to have loads of yard sales. Everybody would come to my yard sales because they knew that I had imported items and they were really nice. And so I just basically did my external world.
So was this by this time you were back in the UK?
No, I was still in India.
Yeah. Okay.
A 2-year-old, and she would have been 5, just coming up 6. And he then flew into the sunset, leaving me there with no money. I sold my brand new car to pay the rent because I think I messed a bit here. Business. I lost everything. Yeah. I ended up in £400,000 of debt. So there's a whole little story around that and how I managed to do that. But it was really this decluttering of the external world. And then I was heavily smoking pot, and I drank quite a lot as well. And I woke up one day later, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that was the next epiphany, really. I don't want to do this anymore. So I at my internal world. Yeah. And I did that with a variety of colon cleansing and raw food diets and fasting for a month and juice fasting. I was living in Goa. We had the smorgasbord of different things that you could go for. That was okay. They weren't cheap, but compared to living in the West, very cheap. Yeah. And I started rebuilding my life from that, really. Yeah. And it was from that place that I connected back with my spiritual gift, and realized that I'm clairvoyant and I channel, and I can heal people on a very deep level. And it was through, I remember standing, talking to my friend in the Arabian Sea, and said, I really want to help their self-worth, because it was my shitty beliefs that had got me into that original place of lack and low self-worth and essentially being put on lithium.
So it was really kind of the food part and the nutrition part, was it, that kind of helped you reach
the next level?
Yeah. Interesting. So when did you end up coming back to the UK then?
I came back 5 years ago. This would have been this month, 5 years ago. And we first of all moved to Bedfordshire, and the kids had wanted to have a relationship with their dad. And so that's kind of part of the reason that we came back. And also my elder daughter, she was ready for something a little bit more than beaches. You know, it'd been an idyllic place to bring
really?
the children up.
Bit more than beaches.
Beaches.
A few of us would really like a beach right now.
Oh God, wouldn't you? I mean, I'm just looking out the window. It's absolutely tipping down. Yeah. So there was a few aspects of why we came back, and so we came back, and we moved to Bedfordshire, which was where he was living, and he left in Bulgaria. So that really that caused a lot of problems for the children. And so I've been maintaining their mental health and resilience and all that, while also probably dealing with quite a lot of, you know, my own abandonment issues of, God, I brought them back here and now this has happened. But, you know, 5 years on, we are in a really good place. And, you know, this lockdown's been a little bit hard for the younger one, but I think all the children have been struggling without the connection. I mean, it's been better since obviously the lockdown was lifted. They need to get back to school.
It's that, you know, they need that connection, don't they? It's mine are they've been, to be fair, they've been absolutely brilliant really all the way through, but there's just been, each one of them has had moments really, you know. But yeah, my youngest has struggled sleeping quite a bit, so especially when it was, because he was year 6 and going back to school before the end of term. And that kind of, as soon as that was announced that year 6 would be going back, then he didn't sleep really properly for a couple of weeks, but we worked through that. So yeah, and he's now got he's now got a double bed, so I've got somewhere to sleep if it happens again. But
mine's going into year 8. The youngest.
Not an easy year anyway, is it really?
No, so the youngest is going into year 8 and the eldest is going into year 11.
So that's quite a lot of I'm hoping that they're going to put something in place for year 11s this year, because it's definitely a tall order, isn't it, expecting them to get similar results having done their own homeschooling really for 6 months.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that they are. I mean, my daughter's been talking about it quite a lot, but also I think they'll put on quite a lot of Saturdays. But I've just had a notice, actually an email from the school saying that they're not going to, face masks are optional, so I'm well chuffed about that.
So how do you keep, so now you've rebooted your life and you've reevaluated everything really within your life, you know, in terms of money, your self-worth, kind of what you put in your body, values, all of those things. So now you've kind of done all of that. What do you do to keep yourself kind of mentally fit now?
and topped up. I run energy. I call it heaven and earth energy. So I always connecting back to love, because that's essentially what it is, what we are, to keep ourselves high vibe. I definitely, if I don't eat the right food, really feel it, getting out in nature every day.
Yeah.
And Emma, I also, I move my body. So, you know, if every 15 minutes I've got my kind of like, if I'm sitting down at my desk, I get up and do some star jumps, and that just keeps that energy moving and the vibration high.
Yeah.
Connection again for me is really important.
Yeah.
So having a laugh,
Yeah.
seeing my mates. I mean, I'm lucky that I've just had 3 weeks holiday from the children. I had a week in Corfu, so you know, some time.
Yes.
So that's really important as well.
Yeah.
You know, doing the things that really make you joyful.
Yeah.
Contribution's a big one. So I volunteer, and that keeps my self-worth high.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's kind of quite a few moving parts to it throughout the course of the day, and self-care is paramount, I think, for us women at whatever stage. And if you're not looking after our self-care, and self-care is more than just having your nails done and having a bubble bath, you know, it's that mind stuff, the reading a great book, or just small little bits that just build up, that work for you. And it's finding your, you know, your bag, really, isn't it?
Whatever's unique to you. But it's really interesting because a few of the things that you've said there, with everything you said, they do come back to, a number of those come back to the NHS's 5 ways to wellbeing. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a link. You just call it something different, but yeah, it does. Yeah, really, it's really interesting. It's quite strange how there's some real fundamental basics that can make a massive difference to your life. And not a lot of people know what they are or understand how to make those changes. And that's and it's great that you found those paths, through probably your reading or rebooting yourself, really, in that respect.
Yeah, and I think back to the thing that I started was with gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's so simple, isn't it? And so, but not just about the gratitude of the trees and the bin men and what have you, but actually then turning the gratitude inwards to what are you grateful about yourself. And then, that could be extended to writing 10 things that you're proud of about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I've really started doing recently, and trying to get the children to do, of actually being proud, and pride is a big one.
Yeah.
If we're feeling pretty low worth.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is I've found more and more through lockdown, through the people that I work with, there is there's a bigger dip in self-worth, in self-esteem, in confidence. People are really struggling to find their kind of, be able to tell themselves what their strengths are, and often to celebrate what those, or what those great things are that are within them. So that it's really interesting that maybe this time where we've had less connection, whether that be back out into work, being part of a team, I don't know, celebrating things as a team, or whether you work on your own, because both of us work quite remotely, don't we? So it's just really interesting that that kind of that real dip in confidence that I've seen even more than normal.
And is that because of external validation, or because we're just missing?
I think it really depends, and I think sometimes it could be external validation, and that we put too much emphasis on external validation and not enough on internal. And actually, quite a lot of people are coming to that point where they're thinking, perhaps I do see the value of why I need to do work on me inside, because ultimately I didn't see the value of that until a few years ago, until about probably 3.5 years ago, and that's when that was really a turning point for me as well, where I realized that there was a lot more to what you could do for yourself and putting more importance, because we talk about self-care, but it's a massive topic, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. And it's different for each person, isn't it?
Yeah. And some people like things that are more woo than others. Like you're talking about your energies and things like that. So for me, it's like, well, I manage my energy, but I don't do it in the same way as you. So everybody has different ways of doing things. So it's just, I suppose, this time's given people the time to really think about, actually, do you know what? Is there more I could be doing with me?
Definitely.
Yeah.
What I found at the beginning of the lockdown, it was highlighting the issues that were already there.
Yes.
Had been masked from being busy.
Yeah.
And if we could get that, if you could get into that part of actually what wasn't, then it gave you some some steps and foundations to start rebuilding and rebooting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah, and what's really interesting as well now is some people have done that reboot already, and they've paused, and they're starting to really learn to pause. And now they're thinking, well, I quite like that. I quite like having that level of kind of control of myself. But how am I going to manage that when I go back out into the real world again? And how am I going to manage that when I'm taking the kids to, whatever clubs they do and school? And, there's kind of relief in some ways, that worry that they're going and mixing with more people, but relief that there'll be some normality for them, and also more time for you to focus on your work. But then is that going to take us back to where we were before? That is the question.
That is a really, that is a great point. Going back to, the early days in India, we used to travel from Goa up to the mountains. Now, this was really before, we were still on dial-up when I left 5 years ago. So we have the extent of social media. And what I noticed when we first came back here is how everybody's just on their screens. And I think this is it's an addiction.
Yeah.
But when we went up to the mountains, the kids and I would be able to really connect again on a different level that we had been down on the beaches. We were together. We probably had better dial up there, but we didn't have the distractions of the friends and what have you. And I think this is one of the key points that we're missing here, of actually taking a breath, taking a beat, and connecting back with the kids. And that's what we've been able to do over this lockdown period. Yeah. But not just that, we've had such amazing weather that we've actually been able to go out and enjoy it. But it's how you do, what those things.
In the south, but not in the north.
Oh, really? Oh, God, sorry.
We've had some, but no.
Oh, God, we've had brilliant weather.
Yeah, we've had some good. Very mixed, I'd say. Yeah.
But, take it with the Italians call it dolce finita. It's like sweet art of doing nothing.
Yeah.
So even if you can sit for a minute and just look out the window and not do anything and watch the trees. Okay, in the winter, the trees aren't going to have their leaves on, but just gaze at the sky, because if you're looking at the sky, it's very grounding. And I think that this is something that really worked for me. Is that taking it 10 minutes is even better, a couple of times a day. And I think that's possible when you've got the kids' clubs.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. You can just center in and notice the breath.
Yeah, and it's a big thing, isn't it? Notice it is a big thing. As much as it's a basic thing, and we breathe all the time, actually sometimes taking a breath it takes a lot of practice.
It does. You're so right there. And it's always the simple things that are going to bring the most value.
Yeah. It's one of your basic physiological needs.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else you would like to add to your lovely interview? I've really enjoyed interviewing you and learning all about your story, Emma.
Thank you so much. I think I've given enough. My key thing is breathe and gratitude, and is the foundation for anything to start beginning that journey towards love for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone wants to learn more about rebooting, I am holding my Mental Fitness Reboot free 5-day reboot on the 14th of September, and the link will be attached in the post. And if anybody wants to learn anything more about what Emma does, how's the best place for people to get in contact with you, Emma? Or
okay, so you can find me on Facebook at Emma Greenslade, Wildly Successful Mama, and that's my business page, and my group is Money Love School, or you can find me at www.emmaggreenslade.com.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. I've loved every minute of it. So thank you very much.